From the MVD Rewind collection comes Best Christmas Movies Ever. This is a documentary from the people who brought you 1982 Greatest Geek Year Ever, which is an excellent, highly recommended documentary if you grew up in 1982 or love the popular films that came out in 1982, the genre films from 82. It is amazing, and I can't stress enough that it's so much better than you think it's going to be. Best Christmas Movies Ever was that movie set a high bar. So when I saw that this was from the same people, I said, I gotta have some of that. So this I didn't like as much, but is still very enjoyable. This is from 2024. This was originally made as a special for the CW, but as was the case with 1982 Greatest Geek Year Ever, they expanded it for Blu-ray to be longer and have more stuff in it that the network maybe didn't want them to have, or things they wanted to include, or things that just wouldn't fit in the time constraints they had for a network TV with commercials special. So directed by Mark A. Altman, same team that did the other one, and it has a lot of people you will recognize. Strangely, very Star Trek centric, but I figured out why. This was made in conjunction with GalaxyCon, which is a very sci-fi Trek-oriented convention, and I think a lot of it was shot at a GalaxyCon. So a lot of these people who were guests, celebrity guests at essentially a Star Trek convention. So that's why so many Star Trek people are opining on their favorite Christmas movies in this. But you get Denise Crosby, Ilya Salkind, who was the producer of Santa Claus the movie, but also the Superman movies and the Three Musketeers movies that Richard Lester did. John Wesley Shipp, My TV Flash, Patrick Warburton, Brent Spiner, and many more. And it is available in English 5.1 or English 2.0 with optional English subtitles. And it's a lot of fun. So basically, I am not a fan of the VH1 popularized this, where you just get a bunch of random people spouting off about a topic and intercutting these people and why something is so great and something is so terrible and oh, what were they thinking? I'm just like, I don't care. I like what I like, you like what you like, and that's fine. What was great about Greatest Geek Year Ever is that it got a lot of people who were involved in the making of these things, and you got a lot of inside stories that had never been told before, and footage and audio that had never been seen before, not even on the supplements of the DVD and Blu-ray releases of these films were in that documentary, so you learned a lot. This has less of that, but it has some of that. So it's a very breezy 90-something minutes when you watch it. It's very fun. You don't agree with all of the opinions, but I think that's the nature of these kind of things. Yes, there is a 90s kid with no knowledge of anything before they were 5 years old who thinks the things they saw as a kid were the greatest films ever and underrated and classics and all this other stuff. And you roll with the punches on that. But then again, it's probably true of anybody of any age. But I always get annoyed when somebody refers to something as the best ever. And I'm just like, you saw this when you were a kid, right? Okay, great. Yeah. And you really haven't watched anything from before. Okay, cool. Then great. Yeah, for you, that's great. I'm glad you like it. I personally think there should be a difference between saying something is a classic or the best and I really like this. Because when you say, I feel like you're throwing down a gauntlet. You're putting something in a book when you say something is the best or underrated or blah, blah, blah. But if you just say, I just really love this film, I got no beef with that. Anyway, very interesting, eclectic group of people, some of which you see multiple times throughout, some of which you don't. You do get people like the director of Jingle All the Way talking about the making of that and the reception of that and what it was like. The director of Christmas Vacation talking about what it's like to live with the legacy of that film, which I saw in the theater. I love now. It's become a modern classic, meaning it was a film that it was okay and popular enough for a while, but in more recent years has really shot up to be right next to all the longtime classic Christmas films. And it really does cover the gamut. You do hear about the Alistair Sim Christmas Carol. You hear about White Christmas. You hear about Holiday Inn. You hear about Jingle All the Way. You hear about modern 2000s films that I've never heard of. So it really spans the gamut. It really was made for a general audience TV, and it does skew a little bit more towards the modern stuff just because that's the audience they're shooting for. But it was a very entertaining watch. I don't know if I would watch it again, but if you like Christmas movies, I'd recommend this. If you like Star Trek, I'd recommend this, because if you want to know what Brent Spiner thinks about, if you want to know what Data thinks, or Denise Crosby thinks, or if you want to know what Putty thinks about various Christmas movies, it's kind of fun to hear them speak as people and not as characters. So extras on this are very fun commentary where they really show you that the guys who made this also do a Star Trek podcast. So that again shows you why there's a lot of Star Trek people in there, but they're very enthusiastic. They talk about what was and wasn't included and why. Very cool guys, very fun guys to listen to. I hope people keep giving them money to make documentaries like this, because especially when they're very focused on something specific, like the 1982 is the one for me that they need to beat, but I would listen to them talk about action movies. I would listen, oh yes, the Die Hard, is it or isn't it a Christmas movie thing is delved into deeply here to a very funny degree. And they do that a couple times with movies that are set around Christmas. They're like, well, if it's set at Christmas, is that enough to call it a Christmas movie? Some people say it has to have Christmas integral to the plot to be a Christmas movie. I just watched something the other day. I wish I could remember what it was, but it had Christmas pretty integral throughout. And it's a movie that you'd laugh if I told you it was a Christmas movie, but I'm like, this wouldn't be happening if it wasn't Christmas. So very, very fun. There are 20 minutes, 29. So let's call it 30. Half hour, sure. 45 minutes, maybe there's an hour. 29 minutes of deleted scenes that are very fun. And it does include people that are not included in the main feature. So you do, some of it's scene extensions. They call it deleted/extended scenes. Very little is repetition from what you saw in the main feature. Some of it is slightly, but it's really expounded upon from there. Very good. Best Christmas movies ever live at GalaxyCon. This was a panel from probably just before the film came out. I think they're talking about the film is going to air on TV in a week or two. So it's one of the creators basically just sitting on a stage and talking to the people who are there about the movie and then showing clips. Now, it's 41 minutes. A lot of clips are lengthy, and there are clips that you're not seeing what they saw. It's not a wide shot of the screen on the panel, so they're cutting in the clips from the thing. But if you're like me, you're watching the extras after you watch the feature, and you've already seen these clips. So I expected they were just going to fade to black and fade back up again, but they don't. So if you're like me and you fast forward through the clips that you just watched and get back to what was going on the panel on the stage at GalaxyCon, this goes a lot faster. It's amusing, it's interesting, and they do a bit of a Q&A with the audience, or having the audience talk about their Christmas film. So it's kind of inconsequential, but if you want a little bit more with the creator of this and with that whole idea and discussion of Christmas movies, there's that. You have the trailer that's a minute and a half, and then you have MVD trailers for 1982 Greatest Geek Year Ever, which I can't recommend highly enough. Jack Frost, which is what I call the good one, which is the Killer Snowman movie, not the Michael Keaton Huggy Snowman movie. 52577, which is an indie film comedy about kids who love Star Wars, and the Go-Go Boys, which is not that. It is it's a documentary made by Golan or Globus or both about their time running Canon Films back in the 80s. It's sort of the official counterpoint to the Electric Boogaloo documentary. So if you want to see what this thing looks like, we have a package like this, and much like I get choked up when I talk about packaging. The Greatest Geek Year Ever, if you look at the menu on that or the cover on that, there's a lot of really nice details that are woven in here that I'm not going to tell you. But when I realized what was written on the back of the Santa shirt, I thought it was pretty funny. So we have a slipcase, which does what? Yes, it slips off to reveal pretty much the same thing underneath. Front and back info, cracker open, and as with all of the MVD Rewind collection, the disc looks like the face label of looks like you're looking down on a videotape, which I love. And then it comes with a poster, which I will show you in a momentito puente. If you take that out, you've got a nice little thing, not reversible, but see-through cover that shows basically videotape covers or video boxes from most of the films they talk about in here. Nice touch. And it comes with a mini poster, which the Rewind collection usually does, that is a replica of the cover. So it's a fun doc. If you like Christmas movies, I can't imagine you wouldn't like this. If you saw this on TV and you're like, I wouldn't mind watching that again, this is going to give you a lot more than you saw on TV. It includes Eyes Wide Shut. That was the big thing. CW was like, don't put Eyes Wide Shut in there. And they're like, it is a movie set at Christmas. It's a Christmas movie. So anyway, if you are interested, this is available on DVD, Blu-ray, and maybe streaming at some point. This is from MVD Rewind Collection, Best Christmas Movies Ever.